If you've always wanted to start a garden and you wanted to grow from seed, but you weren't sure how to start, where to start, well, this is the video for you. In a previous video, we talked about all my seed starting supplies, but in this one, we're gonna talk about which crops to always start from seed. I'll go into exactly which ones I'm gonna start from seed and explain why it's better. And if you're new around here, my name is Chang Ming. I'm a garden designer and educator here in Los Angeles, California. We're experiencing a little bit of rain in here, so Maui's hanging out inside the greenhouse with me, and we're gonna talk about all the plants we're gonna sow. So let's start off by saying, why do we start from seed and why we wouldn't just buy these plants? The most obvious is the cost effectiveness. If you are successful. Now let's pretend that we're really good at starting seeds, and a packet like this costs $3.29. It is an heirloom variety. This one's a tatsoi, one of my favorite greens, and it's really easy to grow from seed. There's probably about 100 seeds, and that means one seed, one plant. But if you buy, like I've seen tatsoi at the nursery, a 6-pack is somewhere like $6, so about $1 a plant minimum. And if you buy a 4-inch, which is a more established plant, then that might be somewhere around $5 to $6. Things have gotten so expensive lately. Now, with that said, again, if you're successful, right? So from Asian supermarkets, you can actually buy seeds. This one is a Japanese seed company. So I found these at the Japanese market, but I've also seen them at the Korean markets as well. So here in Southern California, I have access to a ton of nurseries. I feel really, really fortunate because with lots of nurseries, we have lots of different starts and a greater variety. Now, for example, tatsoi, I can find in seedling form from the nursery, and I've seen bitter melon, I've seen all sorts of vegetables, but I know not everyone has that access. So that's another reason why you would want to start from seed. Sometimes when you start from seed, you have a stronger plant. So that's because you're in full control of your growing environment. Some nurseries on the retail floor, the plants are put out there, and depending on the weather, they're left to the elements, whereas if you're starting from seed, maybe you're nurturing them inside a greenhouse, maybe you're nurturing them inside, or you're paying attention to those specific seedlings, whereas at the nursery, they need to make sure all the plants are okay. I've seen where they haven't been able to address every single plant and provide shade or provide extra water when we have changes in the weather. And we'll dive a little bit deeper on this one, but there's something called transplant shock, and that's when you take a seedling and you plant it and it experiences a shock because of the change in environment and the disruption to the roots. So now let's talk about the plants that I would actually start from seed and never from seedling. So number one crop that you must start from seed and never a seedling is carrots and any root veggies actually, because let's say we planted it. Now, the part that we eat is the root of the plant. If we were to plant it, I want you to learn how to start thinking like a gardener. If we were to plant it and the roots are growing and they're really small, they're really fine, and then when we transplant it, the roots are disturbed and they're bent and they're shaken up. So you're not gonna get really great carrots because you have potentially damaged them. Now, I know it's possible. If you're an experienced gardener, you know exactly the point of time when you can carefully tease carrots apart and then you can plant them and transplant. I think for the majority of gardeners, I would say start from seed for any root veggies. So we're talking radishes, daikon's radish family. We're talking beets, carrots, all of those, parsnips, anything that you're eating the root, start from seed. Okay, so the next category would be leafy greens. Now, you can definitely buy seedlings from the store. However, one lettuce plant is really only supposed to have a 4 to 6 week lifespan. So you're paying $1 a plant or $4 a plant. It adds up because one lettuce plant might be one salad. And if you're eating a salad a day, that adds up very, very quickly. So in this, you can hear, there's a ton of seeds. And this one happens to be a mix of greens. So it looks like different lettuces and mustard greens as well. And then this is arugula right here. Again, each seed is one plant, and one plant can actually last 4 to 6 weeks. And at that point, you're really just growing money. All things considered, I garden in a fairly small space. My entire house lot is 5,000 square feet with my house on it, with the garage on it, and now I have a greenhouse, so I don't have a lot of actual land. Now I bring that up because the next crop that I love to grow and I always grow from seed is snap peas. This also goes for other peas in that family. Every season I grow them vertically and they will climb on anything that you trellis them on. I like to put them on a flat panel so they grow nice and straight and tidy, which means I have more space for other crops. Because it's an urban growing environment, I try to squeeze as many plants as I can in a small space, and I kind of ignore the back of the seed packet. So when I'm growing vertically with snap peas, for example, I actually don't measure out or place them or even eyeball. I just sprinkle some seeds along the base of the trellis and let Mother Nature take over. So the pea plant family actually does not like to have its roots disturbed, and you have to transplant in a very careful way to minimize transplant shock. So the next family to start from seed are your brassicas. A lot of Asian greens are actually in the brassica family, such as tatsoi, and this one some people call gailan, or I say jialan in Mandarin, or you can call it Chinese broccoli. This is the one that you eat at dim sum, where they either steam or blanch really quick and you have it with oyster sauce or hoisin sauce. And if you think about it, each one of these branches is one plant. So this packet actually has 300 seeds in it, and therefore we'll have a lot to eat. If I were to buy this as a seedling and I only have 6 seedlings, that's not even one plate at the dim sum shop. So that's another reason why you would always want to grow these from seed. And before I forget, some of these actually grow super fast and you can have many succession sowings. So for example, this one sprouts in 10 to 14 days. And it's only 50 days to maturity, so it's like 2 months. Also, the ideal temperature for this one is 60 to 80 degrees, so it's perfect for a Southern California winter to spring crop. You can start them now in February and be harvesting in April. If I had actually been on time, I would have started this in the fall, and then I would be planting every couple weeks, planting a new row, so then we would have more to eat every few weeks. Another easy one to start from seed are onions and shallots. We won't go really deep into short day, intermediate day, and long day onions, but just look for the onion that is good for your zone. And you want to start them earlier than later. Now, if you're already well into your growing season at the time of watching this video, you can actually buy small starts and go from there. You'll just get a little bit more bang for your buck if you start from seed. So one tiny benefit of starting onions from seedling is that it's not taking up garden bed space. If you start from seed, it's going to take a lot longer to get to the bulb stage. So the next group of plants that are popular that I would always start from seed are herbs. Now, it's not just every herb, it is very specific herbs. And the way to think about this is you're going to want to start the herbs that don't have a woody stem. So we are not starting rosemary, we are not starting thyme, we are not starting lavender. None of those are going to be from seed. I'll talk about those in the next video. But herbs like parsley and cilantro and even green onion are really easy to start from seed. They're also cool weather tolerant. They germinate really easily and grow so fast when it's from seed. I've often just sprinkled the seeds, covered a little bit of dirt, and call it a day. Takes 2 seconds, and then I have an entire bed of cilantro to eat all winter long. And then as a bonus, let's talk about some flowers that you can grow in the winter. So why would you want to grow some flowers in the winter? Well, the pollinators. So some of these are calendula, pansies, violas, and even sweet alyssum. They attract beneficial insects that will manage your garden for you. So now some tips for success. You're going to want to use fresh seeds, as fresh as possible. I am really bad about this because I tend to over purchase seeds. I see a seed I like, I end up purchasing it without a plan ahead. So I actually am going to start all the seeds because I have some seeds as old as 4 years old. Now, we are in the greenhouse. I did pull the seed packets to show you, but they're normally in a dark, cool room to extend the life of the seed packet. So when you're starting from seed, there are a couple rules of thumb that are just going to make your life a lot easier. I have an entire video. If you're wondering what kind of seed starting containers I use, go find my video on seed starting, and I have all the materials. So I have all these different containers. This one too. And you don't have to get fancy. It tends to spiral really fast. So when you're starting from seed, a general rule of thumb is bury the seed only 1 to 3 times as deep as the size of the seed. So for example, these are golden beets, one of my favorites. And you can tell, hopefully you can see this, these seeds are not very big. So you're only gonna plant this 1 to 3 times the depth of the size of the seed. So what I tend to do is I trench, I drop the beets in, and then I gently put some soil on top and I call it a day. I don't necessarily dig a hole. I don't think it's necessary. So that's how I start any like these root veggies. So another tip when you're starting your seeds is to start with moist soil. Whether it is in the ground, in the bed, or in a container, start with moist soil. And the reason for this is the plants need to be watered at some point. So let me back up. If you start with dry soil and you plant your seed the right depth and then you water, that water could disperse the seed. It doesn't stay where you want it. And not only has it shifted the soil, you don't know the depth of the seed anymore because the water could pull it underneath or it could get disturbed. I always use moist soil because then it packs in a little bit better and you don't have too many air pockets. And then you just leave it alone. You fill with moist soil, put the seed in, cover it, you're done. And you don't water until it starts to dry a little bit. And at that time, hopefully the seed has started to sprout. So you're gonna want to keep your soil moist, not wet, because that could actually drown your seedlings. And it'll dry out the tender roots of the plant. So this next tip, let's talk about thinning plants and do we really need to thin seedlings? If you're lazy, it's okay sometimes. And what I tend to do is judge by what it looks like. Now, if the plants are super, and also it depends on the crop. So for example, carrots. If you want really nice, skinny, long, beautiful carrots, you're going to want to thin them to 1 carrot per location. If you want really beautiful root veggies, you're going to want to space them out and thin them so the plants won't overcrowd and the roots can't intertwine. And to do so, you can pull the seedlings at a really early time, or you can take scissors and to cut them. Hi, Momo. Want some attention? Want to say hello? Hi. Okay. You want some attention. And the last and final tip is to watch for the timing of when you're planting. A lot of gardeners don't tell you about this, but on the packet, it tells you how many days it takes for a plant to mature from germination. So for example, this one says 55 days to maturity. So from today, let's say I plant it February 1st, it might take 10 days to germinate, so then we're at February 10th. And so from February 10th until 55 days from now, that is the window. Okay, so let's pretend today is February 1st and we were to plant these beets. It says 55 days to maturity. So that means from February 1st until February 5th, not February 55th, 55 days from today, plus or minus a few days, because every plant germinates and grows differently at a different speed, you'll be able to harvest beets. So when you plant is really important. It was really obvious to just say, okay, days to maturity, I can understand what date in the calendar I might be harvesting beets. Now, here's the tricky part that most gardeners don't tell you. When we're planting, it's really important to kind of triangulate a few points of data. One of them being days to maturity. That's how many days it takes from after germination to mature to harvest. So these beets, for example, it says 55 days to maturity on the packet. And that means if I'm planting February 1st, there's a few days it takes to germinate, and the moment it starts to germinate, that's the 55-day count. But it's under the ground, I can't see it, I don't know. So you can say from February 1st until 55 days after, plus or minus 10, is usually when you'll be harvesting. So that means February, March, so we're looking at April. Now, the part that most gardeners don't tell you is you then need to consider your temperature at the time of maturity. Now in Southern California, we may get a heat wave between March and April that could mess things up a little bit, but for the most part, it's still pretty cool weather and we should be able to get a really good harvest. Now this particular variety actually says April to July on the packet. However, April to July for where? April to July in Maine versus here in Southern California or in North Carolina, or let's say in the Midwest, the temperatures are very different between April and July depending on where you live. So it's better to take some data points off the seed packet and then do some of your own thinking. Let me know if that made sense or if you need some clarifications. Happy to answer. Just drop it in the comments below. I hope you feel more confident about gardening and starting from seeds. I swear it's easier than you think. Don't overthink it. You just have to simply start by choosing the right winter plants and following a few of my tips. You'll have a thriving garden filled with strong, healthy plants. Let me know which ones you are excited to try. This video, we talked about all the ones I would start from seed, but the next one, these are no-nos. Make sure you subscribe to my channel so when that video drops, you'll be the first to know. Happy planting, and I'll see you in the next one.